Yeah. Here we go.
My wife and I don't live together. She had become abusive over the last few months,
Oh wow.
mostly towards our daughter. Our daughter is almost 18 months old and is my whole world. I am
Don't
unemployed at
y'all
the
look
moment,
where y'all
but my
walking?
mother had been helping me out a lot. Today at around 4 p.m., I took my daughter to the store. I usually do this around the time she wakes up from her nap. My daughter is a very active child and can't seem to sit still for more than 10 minutes without getting cranky. I usually let her walk with me, holding her hand and patiently walking at her pace. I usually get just a juice for her, but had to get some extra groceries that I was short on: flour, sugar, and some noodles. I also remembered we were low on milk
She
and
is
grabbed a
really
gallon on our
like
way
loving
back.
that bottle.
With all that I was carrying, I wasn't able to hold her hand. I made sure to walk behind her, but that only makes her walk slowly. As we made our way to the register, I was continuously urging her to keep walking, which she would do, but only for a second before her attention would be drawn to another rickety box with whatever was on sale, or she would see something colorful on a lower shelf. I was getting a bit frustrated, but I wasn't showing it in my voice. I kept urging her to keep walking, and she kept getting sidetracked. With everything I was carrying, I started to wish I had grabbed a basket. At the front, their customer service desk holds register 1, which was thankfully open. I want to take the time to mention that my daughter is very fond of saying hi and waving at everyone. I set everything up to get rung up, but the service attendant was busy with a return at the customer service area, so I had to wait. The entrance to the store is to my
Oh
right.
man, here we
The
go.
only exit is behind the service desk, which leads into the
She
small
looked at
foyer
him like,
before leading to
"See,
the other
looking.
doors.
I'm gonna go
As
right
people
outside."
enter, they have to pass the customer service desk. I was being fatherly to my daughter, trying to entertain her with patty cake and the itsy bitsy spider while we waited for the cashier to check us out. My daughter would frequently wave at people passing and say hi in her squeaky toddler voice. Some people would smile and wave back, while others would stop to adore her. At this point, I'm used to people doing that. It makes me happy knowing my
I'm
daughter
like,
isn't a
"Okay, move
shy,
along, buddy.
cranky little
I had a little
asshole
bit
like
too
some
much
of the
attention."
kids you see in the stores like this. The lady was ready to check us out, and I told my daughter to hold my hand since I wouldn't be looking her way. I had to pull my wallet out to retrieve my debit card to pay for the groceries and let her hand go for a moment. I kept looking her way to make sure she wasn't wandering off. The lady went to hand me my receipt when all of a sudden she yelled at someone behind me. "What are you doing with his daughter?" She bellowed as I turned to look at a man who had picked her up
Wow,
and started running towards the entrance doors.
wow.
I
He
was
just like,
shocked.
"I'm gonna grab
The
her
doors
and
didn't
book it."
open since they were a one-way set of doors, and the cashier quickly picked up the phone yelling that she was calling the police. I was stunned to the point of immobilization, but
What?
quickly realized what was
I mean,
going
you don't
on.
go run after that
I have a
motherfucker.
pocket knife that I usually carry on me so I can break the seal on my daughter's juice.
That's why you
I quickly ran
immobilized. The
after the
fuck are you
man as
talking
someone
about?
started to make their way through the entrance doors. He didn't get a chance to run through before I
Stab
slammed
him.
my fist across his temple. I decided not to use the knife in case I might get in trouble. The man stumbled and I grabbed my daughter from his arms. He then proceeded to run out the door,
Oh, he
empty-handed.
like he wearing
The
a
police
adult
arrived about
diaper.
5 minutes later and asked me what I had seen. I explained that I hadn't seen the man's face, since he had shaggy long hair and a beard. He was also wearing a hoodie, which wasn't that
Why
much
don't
of a
they just look at the
surprise.
cameras?
They took the statement of several witnesses, including the cashiers, and had already had their other officers searching the area. Someone had said the guy had ran behind the building, but the officers didn't find anyone. The police took us home and then asked more questions like, "Have you seen him before? Do you know anyone who looks like this man?" And then proceeded to ask about the home life. The CPS had been over earlier in the day to discuss my wife's mental health issues,
Oh boy.
and the police had been here earlier as well. The officer asked if we needed any groceries or anything else, and I told them no. The officers left, leaving me their cards in case I saw the guy around the area. About 20 minutes later, I got a knock at the door. To my surprise, the officers had returned with the largest box of
Oh,
pampered
wow.
diapers I had ever seen, a large box of wipes, about 6 large Winko bags of groceries, and a couple of bags of toys. I fell to my knees and cried after they left us. I had spent almost 5 minutes choking back tears as I thanked them. They had left us with a Christmas card saying I was a strong father to have had so much go on recently, and that my daughter was lucky to
Oh,
have
and they gave him
such a great father.
$100.
There was $100 in the card too,
No, ain't
wrapped
that
in a note
sweet.
that said to get a drink or two if I needed it. I don't drink, so I will probably get some extra Christmas presents for my mom and daughter. So, to the fucker that tried to kidnap my daughter, I hope the police find you, and I hope
Who
we
does
never
that?
meet again.
I want to grab your kid. And
So this happened at Christmas a couple of years ago when
I want to grab your kid and just start sprinting. Like who the fuck you think you? Like, how do you think you could get away? Unless like maybe if there was like a car waiting like right at the exit, you could jump into it and they could pull off. Like it was running and somebody was in there. You had a getaway driver. Like what? That's like some shit you see, like some bullshit self-defense scenario. Like what if somebody will come up and just grab your kid? Like will you standing right next to him and just try to like, run away with your kid? Like that's some bull. Like you gotta be like some is altering your mental state. If you think that shit, if you gonna actually get away with that shit.
was spending the holidays with my parents and little brother along with my cousins, aunts, and uncles. We live in a suburb in Ontario, but we were venturing out into the woods for Christmas, an idea that my parents had had for a while. They always loved the idea of being out in a hunting cabin during Christmas with their families. I'm a 22-year-old female now, but at the time, I just turned 18
Going out there if
and
you
my
ain't
little
hunting.
brother Tom was 11. We're really close and do everything together. We also had a dog, a German Shepherd called Trigger, who came along for the ride too. He's a real softie, but can be really overprotective, especially of my brother Tom. Anyway, we left from our house on Christmas Eve at around 2 p.m. and climbed into our dad's truck, filled with all of our stuff and presents for his extended family. Tom and I were really excited, winding each other up, and my parents were having friendly conversation as we moved along the road. We arrived at the village near the cabins we were staying in and
real
caught up with my
enthusiastic.
dad's
She just-
sister, Billy, along with her husband and 3 kids.
I fucking hate
They
these
didn't
kids.
converse for long, but Billy
Hate
was a
this
bit
time of
unsure
year.
of where to go from the village to get to the cabins, so my dad helped her out by writing down the directions. We soon got back on our way and arrived at the cabins at around 4 p.m. There were a cluster of them sort of spaced out around the woods. Each family had a cabin to themselves, and there was one where everyone could meet up with a pool table,
Oh,
a swimming
wow.
pool, and all sorts of activities. It was kind of a
They got
place
some
we could
money.
all just chill together and enjoy each other's
Everybody got their
company.
own individual cabin.
Anyway, the weather was already really cold when we arrived, and the snow was already falling around us. So me and my brother unpacked our things into the cabin and settled in for the night. My dad started a fire whilst my mom made our dinner. It was great. The Christmas decorations were already up and we played a few board games as the night got darker. Dad, Tom, and I decided before coming on the trip that we'd go hunting sometime, so we planned to go the next day.
No, they going hunting something.
I've been a few times with my dad, but this was Tom's first time. He was only there to watch us, though, as he was too young to shoot. It reached around 10 p.m.
Never
and
too
my
young to
brother
shoot,
and I
boy.
were getting a bit tired, so we decided to go to bed.
Goddamn libtard.
My dad kept his rifles in a bag, which he kept under the bed I was sleeping on. He'd usually keep it in a locked box, but thought there was no point since we were going hunting the next morning. Tom and I were sharing a room at the end of the cabin, facing a flowing river. The view was beautiful.
What a dog like.
Tom and I fell asleep with our dog,
It looked
Trigger,
like it's
laying
not
at the bottom
real.
of Tom's bed. Now,
I mean, none of this
this
is real,
is when
but
things
it
began
looks
to
even
get creepy.
fake.
It was
It's not
about 3
moving.
a.m. when I awoke
And it's
to
like it's
Trigger
hollow.
growling. I didn't find this particularly unusual, because my dad suffers from insomnia, so sometimes when he can't sleep, he sits in our sitting room at home and watches some television. Like I said, Trigger is
See,
extremely
now I like this a
overprotective
lot
and growls
because
at
it's
any
moving.
noise he hears. But that's when I noticed that there was no light coming from under my door. My dad never just sits in the dark. I whispered to Trigger, telling him to be quiet as Tom slept, but his growling soon turned to barking, which woke Tom up. He asked me what was going on, but I said Trigger must have heard some deer or something outside. After all, we were
Stop
in the middle of
assuming
the
shit.
woods. Suddenly, our bedroom door swung open and the light switch was turned on. My eyes stung as I tried to focus on whoever it was at the door. It was my dad.
Oh,
"Were you two just laughing just now?" he asked as he turned to look at Tom, his eyes wide and his face pale. "No," I replied as he moved over towards our curtain, pulling it back as he looked into the pitch-black wilderness. "What are you looking at?" Tom asked as our dad closed the curtains again. "Nothing. Just go back to
you
sleep."
look worried.
I was kind of
You
creeped
know
out that my
everybody get
dad
worried when
didn't
your
say
dad is
anything
worried.
about what he was doing, but he turned our light off and we tried to fall back asleep again. Of course, I couldn't. I was wide awake for the rest of the night, flinching at pretty much every noise. It was about 4:30 a.m. when I finally drifted off, but it must have been moments later I heard strange crunching noises coming from outside our window.
Boy, here
I
we
was
go.
sure this wasn't some sort of animal. It sounded like
Just shoot through the
footsteps.
goddamn window.
I had this overwhelming feeling of fear, and I pulled the covers over my face, sweat beginning to cover my forehead. I then
This
heard
ain't
a
the
faint
boogeyman.
tapping on our window, which lasted for a good few moments. I was so petrified I
Shit.
couldn't move. Trigger was awake by this point as I saw his face turn towards the window, his ears pointed and listening intently. The tapping started again, but louder this time, causing Trigger to bare his teeth. What happened next was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to
Broke the
me.
window.
"I know you're in there, little guy." This deep and husky voice whispered
Wow.
as a horrible shiver went down my spine. "Why don't you come out here and play with me?"
Wait, won't you fuck off?
Initially, I was filled with rage. I thought that it was bound to be one of my cousins playing a stupid prank on us, so I leaned forward and peeked through a
You
gap in the
assume
curtain,
a lot.
ready to give them hell for scaring the shit out of us. But standing there
Oh,
wasn't
shit.
any of our cousins. It was a
That
creepy
fucking
old
hair.
man who was around 60,
Jeez.
his hair matted, and his clothes looked dirty and ancient. He was stroking the window with his hands, breathing on it as he spoke. I went into protective mode. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my dad's hunting rifle from under my bed and pulled the curtain back. "Get the hell out of here, I'll shoot!" I felt adrenaline rush through me as the creepy man's eyes widened and the most terrifying smile
Oh, wow,
appeared
he
across his
excited.
face. Trigger began barking louder than I've ever heard him bark. My parents obviously heard the commotion and came running through to our room, turning the light on. My mom screamed as she saw the old man through the window, Trigger fiercely continuing to bark at the man. My father yelled at the man, telling him that the police were on their way, but the man legged it back into the woods. Tom was petrified, but I was angry more than anything else. How could some sicko do this? I was just extremely glad I had the rifle. The cops caught the guy just a few minutes later and arrested him. I found out a couple of days later that the creepy man was homeless and living in the woods, and he was suffering from a lot of mental issues. It scares me to death to think about what could have happened to my brother if I hadn't been there. We spent the remainder of Christmas
Here
Day
to
at the
fuck
cabin,
y'all up.
but we stayed in our Aunt Billy's cabin overnight. There was no way we were sleeping on our own after what had happened. We went home first thing on Boxing Day and never looked back. My dad only told me the other day that he knew someone was hanging around our cabin, so he intentionally left the rifle under my bed in case I had to use it in
Wait,
self-defense.
why didn't you tell her that?
He did that because he didn't want to scare any of us. He called the cops after he heard the guy laughing outside of his bedroom window, singing nursery rhymes.
He said, "Oh, I was." He like, "Oh, I saw this guy hanging around that cabin, and I didn't tell you anything about seeing him, so you'd be alert. But I'm gonna leave a gun under your bed." It's like, well, you know where it's at. The gun's under the bed, you know. That's where it's at. All right. If anything happens, that's when, like, why would anything happen? I'm just letting you know. I ain't saying nothing gonna happen. Just letting you know that the gun's under the bed. You tell her, like, hey, I saw some creepy ass dude like hanging around our cabin. You know, the gun's under the bed for you. I left the hunting rifle under the bed, so you can protect yourself if something happen. You know, it's like Spider Man. I
All I
protect
wanted was to
my
use my coupon for free underwear.
Spider Man. I don't tell my loved ones about that I'm Spider Man and that they could be in grave danger if someone found out, one of my villains found out who I am, to protect them. And people always find out, and they always go out this fucking family. Like, you won't you just tell them?
From Victoria's Secret. The story starts out with a girl's day and afternoon, 24-year-old female with my good friend, Scarlett, back in December 2015. We both received coupons in the mail and it was finally time to use them, so we decided to get lunch and then head to the mall. Upon entering Victoria's Secret, I noticed a tall, heavy-set man pacing slowly in front of the doors. I figured this was probably just another guy, too embarrassed to shop with his girlfriend, sister, friend, mother, what have you, inside a store decorated with lace bras and half-naked models in underwear. After we each picked out a pair, we decided to just walk around the mall and go to the different shops, mostly window shopping. Scarlett wanted to find a pair of earrings that were Christmas festive, so we headed to Claire's. For anyone who hasn't seen a Claire's in the mall, they're usually tiny and the entire store can be viewed from the outside given how large the windows are. We were looking at one of the first rotating
Oh boy,
racks when I noticed a man standing slightly behind me. A quick glance over my shoulder
the
revealed
fuck?
that it was the same gentleman who was pacing
She
back
looked
and
behind
forth in
Eli.
front of the Victoria's Secret. He was not looking directly at me, so, again giving him the benefit
I
of
would
the
have
doubt,
definitely moved.
figured that he likely followed his person to Claire's. However, I don't like tight spaces,
Yeah, I would have
so I
definitely
casually
moved. Like,
moved about a foot away from him.
fuck away from me.
He shuffled closer. I scoot away again,
Are you
and he
serious?
again inched closer. Okay, weird. I
Weird.
look up.
Get
He
back the
towers
fuck
over
up.
me, a good 6'2", if not taller, wearing a hoodie that
Same
hangs
height I am.
loosely, covering most of his thighs and baggy jeans. I give a short nod and smile.
Don't
Big
smile.
mistake.
Yeah,
We
now
lock eyes.
basically like
In my
you want
head,
to
I
have
can
sex
hear
with
my
him now.
friend saying, "Being nice causes accidents," and silently curse her. I move again and bend down to look at the other jewelry. He shuffles towards me.
Oh, just like don't be mean either, but don't be overly nice. Just be bland, straight face. Just like don't show any emotion. That way, he can't be upset. He can't be like, "Why are you like?" Oh, he can't take your niceness as that you like him, or your meanness that you're a bitch. Just be plain. Unless he start talking to you, be like, "Hey, I ain't interested." Now, if you're gonna be ass up, like, "Hey, how come you're not interested?" Cause bitch, I'm not. Like, that's why. Well, you got a boyfriend? Like, no. I'm just not interested in you. Get your ugly ass.
Again, and this time nearly on top of me. He then
Dude,
puts
like,
his
this is not
hands
a
under his hoodie
nightclub.
and starts making only what I can describe as
Oh,
a
no.
fapping noise with his hand. I'm not sure what he was doing. Maybe he had an itch, but the motion
Shit.
certainly did not look like he was scratching his
him in
stomach.
his dick.
The whole time he was doing this, he stared at the rack with a weird grin and would occasionally look at me. I freeze, slowly put the jewelry back on the shelf and straightened. Glancing at Scarlett, we make eye contact and nod to each
Scarlett,
other
like,
in
what the
mutual
fuck?
agreement, deciding to move across the store.
How
He
about you
follows.
leave?
At this point, I get closer to Scarlet. Hey, is he freaking you out a bit? Yeah. Okay, let's move back to the store, closer to the cameras and employees.
Just leave.
So we move back and pretend to inspect the hairbands, pointing to which ones we like. The man proceeds to try to follow us
Wow.
back there, but the sales associate, thank God, steps in front of him. Sir, do you know them? No answer. Are they your friends? The man shakes his head. Sir, I think you should leave the store. He immediately turns around and walks out.
The fuck out of
We
here.
thought it was over.
Creep.
Nope. We stay in the back for a bit, nearly forgetting
Thought this
about
was
this
over.
strange man.
Nope.
I looked towards the front of the store and stopped in my tracks. The man was standing, staring me down with his nose
Wow.
nearly touching the window. I cannot forget the look he had on his face. It was as if he was watching his prey. I honestly have not seen that kind of menace in someone's eyes before, and it still gives me chills. I turn and face Scarlet. Fuck, Scarlet. He's here. He's still here.
They
She looks
communicating
behind and her face
telepathically.
goes pale. Let's move, she says. Still staying along the back wall, we walk to the right-hand side of the store. He mimics our movements, never taking his eyes off me. He's stalking you.
She kind of like that
Scarlett
chick
says,
from the chick from
"Thanks.
Bob's Burger.
Thanks, needed that," I thought to myself. We look for the sales associate again, and she sees what he's doing. She looks over to me and tells
She
us,
gave that.
"Don't leave the store. I'm calling security." I'm relieved and panicked at the same
I
time.
pull out my
I
tablet.
texted my roommate to let him know of our location, what was happening, and to make sure he could get us in case anything escalated. Another 5 minutes went by, and the man walked off, looking back every now and then until he disappeared into the crowd. Then the security officer showed up. He looked frail, and he appeared to be an elderly man in his 70s. He asked us what was wrong, and we told him. The sales associate confirmed everything, down to what color clothes he was wearing and the sneakers he had on. The security officer shrugged. Well,
Yeah.
he's gone now. There's nothing I can really do. Let me know if he comes by again. I was shocked, a little hurt and frustrated. The employee helped keep a lookout for us as we scurried across the mall to the exit.
I
We
mean, he's
sped
kind
back
of
to my
right. If he's
vehicle,
gone, he
got
can't
in,
really do
and locked the
anything.
doors. Thank you, employee at
I mean, he
Claire's,
could
for
probably
being
tell the
awesome
other
and sticking
security,
with
like,
us,
look for this guy,
trying to make us feel safe.
escort him out of the building.
You went above and beyond your job. When I recounted the story to my boyfriend later that night, we ended up calling the security office at the mall to complain. We were told that it couldn't be helped. The head of the department tried to tell me that the man was mentally challenged and that at the time of our incident, he was unescorted by his family. After a couple of months of thinking about this, I'm not entirely sure of the case. Despite any disability he had, he was aware of what he was doing when you consider the sales associate asking him questions. This was in the middle of the afternoon in a crowded area in a well-lit place with a friend. I was not alone. Do not be lulled into a false sense of security as I was. Stay safe, my friends. It was December, some many years ago. I somehow found myself doing shoots for one of those
What?
get your picture taken with Santa things.
Oh, this came up. I saw this. I was just like, oh, the first thing into my head. Oh, just a pedophile one. I mean, the first one was a pedophile. The dude tried to stay. Well, I mean, I guess could he be trying to get her, steal her, and put her in like a sex trafficking a ring or some shit. I don't know, but I was like, what? Like, I mean, if you see a kid sitting on Santa's lap, like, I don't know why, like, my mind immediately went, oh, there's a pedophile.
the most part, I just took the money for the pictures and everyone else did the rest. It wasn't exactly the most exciting thing. Without going into too much detail, I'll just say that when it came to an end, I think I was more excited for that than I was my own high school graduation. There's a lot of reasons. Things like screaming children, the ironic teenagers who had a tendency to mess with the setup, you name it. But I think the biggest thing was the fact that it was just plain humiliating. At least the people were nice. There was this super hot lady who was always nice to me. Not that I had a chance or anything, but it was a big reason why
Super
I
hot.
didn't just walk away. The guy they had who played Santa was a funny dude.
I feel you on that, man. I've done a lot of stupid shit just to get in a situation where I can talk to a chick. Like, I've taken college classes that I had to pay for after I saw a chick in the enrollment office that was taking it, and she was enrolling in the class, and I said, "Shit, I can enroll in that too." And I've done that. I don't know. I've done it a few. I know at least a few times. Only ever talked to a chick once. Well, talked to one chick once. Other times just enrolled and didn't say shit. And that particular chick, I actually did start dating for about, I don't know. It was like a year. Maybe not that long. Maybe it was like 10 months.
He played the role very well and very enthusiastically. The children, or at least the ones who weren't crying, just ate his act right up. In a lot of ways, I kind of admired the man. On breaks, I would usually smoke with him in the back entrance. One time, I asked him what his secret was. He looked me square in the eyes with this intense stare, which, mind you, he was still dressed as Santa, so it was somewhere between being hard to take serious and also hard not just to shrug off. Drugs, he said flatly.
Drugs.
Then he held the look just long enough to make it extremely awkward. Finally, he burst into laughter. It was hard not to laugh with him. The guy had one heck of a sense of humor.
Why is
So
he
one
like
day,
drugs?
he pulls a no-call, no-show. I get in, and everyone is freaking out. Usually nobody cared all that much, as we all got to go home, but seeing as it was Christmas in a few days, this was when the profit was at its height. Messing with this was not to be taken lightly. 10 minutes into me showing up, and they decided I should take the role. I wasn't that old, however, I was pretty fat at the time. I put up an argument, but in the end, it was do it or get fired. I tried to convince myself that impressing the hot lady I mentioned earlier would make it worthwhile, but when that first kid crawled on my lap and told me that she wanted a PlayStation 2, I realized that nothing could redeem this. About 3 hours into doing this, I noticed a strange man sitting in the food court. He looked older, like his skin was leathery. He looked like he's been in a few fights, too. He was looking right at me. I'm not talking about a bypassing glance either, no. This guy was giving me the stink eye. I tried to ignore him, figuring he'd just go away after a while, but the guy just stayed right there. He wouldn't stop staring at me. I wanted to point this guy out to my coworker, thinking that they could call security, but then I started to let the possible repercussions snowball in my head. What if he realized what I did, just walked away to another location where he could attack me in, let's say, the parking lot, or maybe the backseat of my car?
Okay, you overthinking this.
By this point, I knew.
Or if he do that anyway.
Nobody does what he does unless they're in it for the long run. Break time comes, and I make a brisk jog, like walk away from his sight. As I do, I see him get up and move to follow me. As soon as I hit the corner, I run for it. Realizing this goon might see me at any second, I run straight into the public bathroom to my left and hide myself in one of the stalls.
Wait, what?
It's about a minute before the door bursts open.
Why would you
and the
go
creepy
in there?
dude runs into the bathroom,
in a
slightly out of
bathroom?
breath.
Well, there's no way
I
out.
hold my breath, terrified that if I didn't, the bells on the Santa suit would give me away. Thing is, it's pretty hard to hide when you're dressed like Father Christmas. You see, you got these red pants and these black boots. They're a dead giveaway, especially when you're hiding in a stall where you can see the feet underneath. The man saw it straight away and kicked the door open. He grabbed me by the collar and shoved me against the wall. I could tell he was in his late 30s, early 40s maybe. He demanded me to give him the money I owed him. Here's the thing. I'd never seen this guy before, not once in my entire life. Why would I owe him money?
Oh, he
Did I
the other
borrow money
guy.
from someone recently? No, that couldn't
You don't
be.
remember you borrowed money
I
from
don't know what you're
someone?
talking about. I tell him. I'm sufficiently freaked out at this point. What did I get myself
Wait a
into?
minute, he don't
I
recognize
mean,
your
to an
voice is
outsider, I'm
different?
sure it looks silly. A goon intimidating a Santa in a bathroom. This guy rips my mask right off my face and throws it in the sink. Then he raises his fist to punch me.
Yeah, you don't
But
recognize
before
him?
he lets his fist fly, he takes a step back, letting go of me. You're not him.
You gonna let him beat your ass?
He looks more afraid than I do at this point. He demands that I stay right there as he pulls out a flip phone and calls somebody. He's pretty low-key about what he's saying, and I'm just standing there completely nervous. What was just a minute felt like hours to me as the man paced back and forth in the bathroom as I stand there in my beardless Santa outfit. Finally, the guy flips his phone shut and smiles at me. I see he's got teeth missing. I'll never forget what he said. It was equal parts confusing and relieving. Sorry, bud. Wrong Santa. Merry Christmas. And out he went.
Fuck you.
I was pretty confused, to say the least. I don't know how I pulled off the rest of that Santa shift, but apparently not all that great. My boss kept reprimanding me for seeming too nervous and not being cheerful enough.
I
Later
just
that
got
night, it
attacked
all
in the
seemed to come
bathroom.
together to me. The Santa who banged in, he was the one they were after. In the end, it all made perfect sense. Why he was so animated, why he always seemed in a good mood. The whole works. All things considered, he was very naughty, and I was almost the one who got the coal. I don't know if they ever caught up to him in the end, but if they did, I for one hope that his wallet was full. I'd hate to see what they'd do if he had nothing to give.
They beat his ass. That's what they do.
A few Christmases ago, I was driving my kids back from visiting their grandparents out in the countryside. They moved out to this big old house once my dad sold his business, one of those offers he couldn't refuse type things that meant he could retire like 10 years earlier than expected. The house is amazing, but the only problem is that it's in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place where the nearest village is like 20 minutes drive away.
Why would you
It's
move to a
also
place
one
like
heck of a
that?
drive to and from the
Fuck you
place.
think you are, Bruce
One that
Wayne?
involves traversing some pretty secluded stretches of motorway. So like I said, it's maybe only a week before Christmas. It's the 16th or 17th of December, and my kids are really bloody excited about it. My wee lad is still 5 years old, a true Santa believer, while my daughter had only just turned 9. So they're starting to cotton on that something isn't quite right about the whole thing, but they still sort of want to believe, if that makes any sense. So when they see a hand-painted Christmas light dripping sign that says something like Santa's Grotto 9 miles, they start going ballistic in the back seat, demanding I take them to see Santa. At first, I straight up refuse. It was a long enough drive without pulling into some lay-by to spend the better part of an hour nattering away with some old fella in a red suit. But the pair of them throw an absolute fit, to the point where I decided I would get far more peace if I just capitulated and let them spend a few minutes indulging their
Shit.
childish imaginations.
Capitulate my ass. Man, I don't. My parents wouldn't give a fuck. They'd have been like, I'm pull this car over and beat your ass. You start throwing a hissy fit when I tell you can't do something. Shit, my dad, my dad would have been definitely the one that would get angry the fastest, and he would have looked back. I'd have started throwing a fit. He just like, my dad had the coldest look. Like he had a look that send chills down a grown man's spine. Just this, like he had his dead, just stare, especially when he was angry, and it's just like you could see. It's like his face was just like stone, but his eyes were like intense. And man, fuck out of here, though. You know, drove for hours, and now your kids were like, we want to go see Santa. Bitch, Santa not real. How about that? Gonna goddamn see Santa somewhere. Like, fuck you talking about? And where are y'all at? This ain't like a mall that, we frequent a lot, so you familiar with it. It's some random place Yeah, they drove past a sign that says "Come see Santa." So you're not familiar with the place? Like hell no, we're not doing that.
Like I said, my eldest was just on the cusp of figuring out that Santa was just mom and dad sneaking out in the middle of the night to take their presents out of the car boot before stashing them under the Christmas tree. And every time I imagined her getting older, getting wiser, figuring things out, becoming a young adult,
The
I
boy
had me
got the
choking
same
up
eyes
like
as she
nobody's
had.
business.
My mama,
So I
yeah.
suppose I just wanted to enjoy their naivete just a wee bit longer. Besides, once she'd figured out the truth, it was only a matter of time before she spilled the beans to my youngest. And that was a day I most definitely wasn't looking forward to. So after a few more signs like Santa's Grotto 3 miles, I finally see the turnoff that I needed to take to get to the grotto. It takes me down this long,
100
dark
meters,
dirt
3 miles.
track that at first I thought might have been the wrong
Can't
turnoff.
be.
But lo and behold, after about 5 minutes or so, I see
Oh, that's
another one of
100
those
meters,
janky
1,000
hand
meters.
painted signs for Santa's Grotto. The kids are just about ready to burst at this point, but I make it clear that we're not staying any longer than 10 minutes, and they're to be on their best behavior, leaving when I tell them to leave, lest Santa see what bad little children they are. The threat of coal in their stockings was more than enough to have them promising to be good. Anyway, I expected a quaint little winter wonderland type thing with a few other families milling around, but the place was barely even decorated and looked completely deserted. It was little more than porta-cabin with a few caravans parked around it. Like, I'm not messing when I say whoever was in charge of this place had put more effort into decorating the road signs than the actual site itself. I had a bad feeling from the get-go, but I knew better than to reverse myself and tell the kids to get back in the car. They'd have gone absolutely mental
Knew
getting so
better.
close to meeting Santa, only to be told that I'd just up and changed my mind. So, against my better judgment, I decided to give the place a chance. We walked up to the porta
That was
cabin,
your
which
first
seemed to be
mistake.
the place where the grotto was, and knocked on the door.
Well,
There
your
was no
first
reply at
mistake was
first,
even
so we knocked
going
again,
to
and
this
as we
fucking
did
place.
so, one of the doors to the caravan swings open, and this heavier set older fellow with a big gray beard sticks his head out and gives me a death stare. I look over at him, and in my cheeriest voice, I ask, "We're here to see Santa. Is he around?" I give a quick
He like,
nod
hell
towards the
no, he
kids
ain't
as
here.
if to
He
say
dead.
the fellow who I was guessing was the one playing Santa to get himself together so the kids wouldn't throw a fit. He doesn't say a word at
He like,
first.
fuck your
He just
kids.
stares at me almost like looking through me like there was nothing behind his eyes at all. He finally says something like, "I'll go fetch him," then shuts the door, only to re-emerge a few moments later dressed in what was without a doubt the worst looking Santa
He
suit I've
just
ever
put a
seen in my
hat
life.
on. That's all he
Not only
did.
was it lacking any kind of white felt, there was no belt or anything. The bloke had pretty much just thrown together a collection of red clothes and then whacked on a cheap Santa hat to round the look off. On top of that, the clothes were absolutely filthy, covered in grease stains with a collection of what appeared to be his cigarette burns in the pants. He walked towards the kids and asked them if they were excited to see him.
Kids looking like,
They
what
gave
the
each other this
fuck?
cartoonish look as if to say, "Who is this guy?" And the bloke has to repeat the question in a characteristically festive voice before they even really twig to the fact that this was Santa Claus. They just sort of nod at first, watching in confusion as he takes out the key from the red pants and unlocks the porta cabin before beckoning them inside.
No.
The interior was absolutely terrifying. Like, I'm a grown woman, and even I got the creeps from stepping inside that thing. It was dark and grimy, and the use of cheap Christmas lights managed to give the place a kind of festive torture chamber type vibe,
Man,
as
why are y'all
opposed to the
still
cozy
here?
grotto feeling they were obviously aiming for. The crowning piece of creepiness was the fact that mounted on one wall was what I guessed was an old sheep's skull that had some plastic deer antlers taped or glued to the top of it. It would have been creepy enough in broad daylight, but the fact that it was being partially, then fully illuminated by red and green flashing lights gave it a truly hellish aesthetic. Santa sat down on a grubby old couch that stunk of pee and old ale,
Oh,
then
wow.
smacked his knees as if to invite the kids to go sit on his lap. Neither of them moved. Their lack of reaction prompted Santa to give them something of a scowl before he very curtly asked them what each of them wanted for Christmas. Both of the kids were so nervous by that point that I had to prompt them to reply. The awkward exchange went on for a few more minutes until I turned to the
Just
kids and told
leave.
them we had to leave.
Yes.
As I'm ushering the kids out of the porta cabin and back towards the car, I feel a hand grab the crook of my arm and squeeze. I turn to see Santa's face pushed right into mine, his breath reeking of
Oh, he like, you
ciggies
owe
and
me
hard
money,
booze.
bitch.
50 quid, he
Oh,
hissed.
quit. Oh, they fucking
Sorry, Santa.
England
Haven't
or
got
so,
anything on me,
Ireland or some shit.
I said, trying to be as polite as possible, maintaining a passive-aggressive tone. But I promised me and my husband will leave out some extra brandy and mince pies for you on Christmas night,
50
just to
quid.
make up for it.
Bitch, you
I
didn't
don't
do
even know I was
anything.
keeping up the pretense by that point. I'm pretty sure the whole experience had scarred my wee lad for life and had pretty much
Wee
destroyed
lad,
any
okay, is this
remaining
Ireland?
festive belief in my daughter.
We
Santa
lied.
yelled back at me, calling me an expletive. I just keep pushing my kids
we
back
call you a
towards the
bitch?
car, turning back briefly
No,
to
it's
see that Santa
Ireland.
is
You
no
fucking
longer alone.
cunt.
He was never alone. A gang of other people have filed out of the
Oh
caravan
shit, the
and are
fucking
following us back towards where I parked the
hills
car.
have eyes
Then
gang.
starts off the chorus of, "Where do you think you're going, love? You haven't paid. He told you 50 quid, get your purse out." Oh,
Where you think you're going, love? 50 quid, get your puss out, you fucking Come on, dude. You gotta do the voice. I mean, he probably don't want to do it because he might seem like he might offend some We just watch the Try channel and just get us, just get the accent. Just get the accent from them.
we'll get it out for you.
We'll get it
My
off
kids
for
were on
you.
the verge of tears at that point, and if I'm being honest, I wasn't far off
And
either.
see, this is y'all fault.
I gave in, took out my purse, and started sifting through it to see if I had 50 in notes on me. Right as I'm doing that, this kid, this actual bloody child, just snatches the whole thing out of my hand and runs
Wow.
back towards the caravan with it, only to be goaded on by the gang of skanky-looking grown-ups going, "Good lad, that'll teach her. She needs to learn some generosity. It is Christmas after all."
Good lad.
I didn't do a bloody thing. Well, aside from getting in the car and driving off. The damage control from that bit of horribleness was a lot of
Yeah,
work.
call the police.
I'm pretty sure it was the singular event that broke my eldest kid's belief, and we had to reassure my youngest over and over that he was just a bad man pretending to be Santa, and that the real
No,
Santa
that
would
was
most
Santa.
definitely be putting him on the naughty list for what he'd done.
That was Krampus.
But honestly, I think it's me that belongs on the naughty list for putting my kids in
Yeah,
that
that was
position in the
stupid.
first place, and for putting myself in the most terrifying Christmas-related event I'd ever gone through. Far, far scarier than my first Christmas with my mother-in-law, if you can believe that.
Like, that was stupid. Why would you?
If you enjoyed these stories animated by the awesome Mort, but you want to hear more, be sure to head over to my channel, Let's Read, to hear the...
I think I've heard of that channel. Ooh, that frame rate dropped down way down. It was at 20 frames. Why does the frame rate keep dropping those? They used to stay up at 30. I ain't done nothing different on this computer. Now that the frames are on OBS, I'm getting ready to like uninstall and reinstall it. But then I don't want to have to I don't want to have to do all my settings again. Even though, I mean, it's not like a big deal. I've done it before. This chick, like I said before, why would you go to some random, what was it called? Santa Grotto or whatever. Like, basically go to meet Santa Claus or some meet Santa thing. And I don't know what the fuck it's called. And you go to someplace you've never been before, you're not familiar with it. And you just take your kids there because like they thought they're on the field. I don't give a fuck about them kids. Like, you gonna go ahead and you put yourself in this. When that man came out and you saw him, I would have left. I wouldn't even said nothing. I would have just left. Talking about something, and especially let's just say out of like we're here to see Santa Claus, and he like, okay, give me a minute. He go in, come back out, and just have a damn Santa Claus hat on. And you entertain this way too much. That motherfucker said 50 quid. The kid took, I'd have snatched that kid as soon as I'd have pulled out my wallet as soon as that fucking kid would have came up and tried to snatch my wallet out of my hand. I would have grabbed his ass and start swinging him at the other guy with the bat. Use it as a weapon. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, but there's a Miles stupid for allowing that time. Like, learn how to say no to your kids. Like, I don't want to break the Christmas spirit. You know, it's bullshit. Like, fuck that. Like, think first. Now I looked at it, now your kid is like, is that how Santa Claus really is? He just a big thug. Like no, that wasn't really Santa Claus. Like especially the way her kids were reacting, like uh, and right then I'd have been like, all right, it's time to go. But then he'd have been like, hey, bitch, you ain't give me some money, 50 quid. I don't know how much 50 quid is. I'm just assume it's like $50 in comparison to American money. But I could look it up. I'm not going to. But anyway, like, why would you put yourself in such a horrible situation? Because of your kids, like, oh, we want to see Santa Claus. Well, you better see him in your dreams because we going to my parents' house, and that's it. Or she said, our parents' house, or parent, or mother-in-law, or father-in-law, whoever, the grandparents' house, the kid's grandparents' house. Like, that's where we going. All right. And she said her daughter was 9. I didn't even think kids. I thought kids figured out Santa wasn't real when shit they like 6 or something, 5. Maybe that's a little bit like 6 or 7. Like you like 9. I think she said she was 8 or 9, and you still think Santa Claus is real. Well, she said she was starting to ask questions, starting to, I guess, but she still believed that he was real. Like how to, and like I remember I knew kids when I was a kid. I don't know how I remember this conversation. Well, it's like stuck with me. I had this conversation. I was at a school called Clissold. It might have been when I was in the 3rd grade. No, it was before then. It was something like because I went to school first, second, third, and 4th grade. Well, 3, 4 months into my 4th grade year, I changed schools, but in pretty much most of my 1st grade, then all the second, third, and then the 3 or 4 months in the 4th grade. And it was I can't remember what grade it was, but I remember having a conversation at that school. I remember where I was living at the time, and it's about whether Santa Claus was real. And the kid was like, I remember because one of my friends who lived in the same apartment complex I did was right across the street. He was like, how does Santa? He's talking about like Santa and all this bullshit, and giving you better be good and all this stuff. If you want to get toys and stuff like that, and to think whatever you want. And my friend, damn it, what was his name? Now, why am I forgetting this? I remember the situation. I'm forgetting my friend's name. No, was it Marlon or Marvin? I can't remember. But he said, uh, he said we live in an apartment complex. Like, how the hell Santa can come? You understand? But this, yeah, well, because they used to put us in timeout even in. I was in the 3rd grade. They didn't do it when I was in the 4th grade. But I remember she told me you had to go sit in the timeout area. It's like fate. You gotta look at the wall. So basically, it was like a mat, and it was like just a wall with nothing in it. So you had to face that. And that was when I was in third grade. Second grade, teacher didn't really have that. It was no. She had a desk outside. The second and fourth grade teacher had a desk outside the um, classroom, and they tell you go sit outside. But my third grade teacher, she was like, go sit over there in the corner, basically, and just go sit on the floor, just face the wall. And then it became just sit over there without facing the wall. Like basically just uh, separating yourself from the activities the rest of the class was doing. But he said, he was like, what the hell? He was like, how the hell he can't get money? We live in his apartment complex. And then I think other kids were like, because some other kids must have lived in apartments too. And they was like, yeah, how does he do like? And I don't remember what because I don't remember exactly what she said. Afterwards, I do remember her trying to explain it, but I don't remember verbatim what she said. I was I was like, that's a good one. I mean, I didn't, because I didn't grow up Christian, so we never celebrated Christmas anyway. So I never believed that, and that Santa Claus was real, and and that was fucking hilarious. Oh man, I remember laughing at that so hard. I like put my head down on my desk and I would just laugh. Oh, but she's stupid, stupid for that. Anyway, hope y'all enjoyed my reaction. One of you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new here. Hit that bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.